Thank you all for being here, and I will get going. For my internship, did a user study on the usability of the companion app for a wearable health device called the Oura Ring. So to connect this to a bit of my coursework, I've done some user experience design through some of my courses, most notably Dr. Fay Yu's user experience design class, which is where the initial inspiration for this project came from. For that class, the term project was to investigate the usability of one of the devices in the Health Information Sciences Library's device collection. And through talking with her about my goal for the project, it became clear that it wasn't really fitting the scope of what the class was looking for. So we talked about broadening the project to be something to fit the practicum for the BMHI program. Then in the next semester, I had an electronic health records class with Dr. Javed Mustafa, where the term project for that class was actually a user experience study. So I got a bit of experience doing that before I went and did my internship over the past summer. For that one, myself and a team of 2 others investigated WebMD's website and dug into the usability of that system. So focusing a bit on what I actually did, I had to design, get approval for, and carry out a user study on the Oura Ring. Wasn't quite clear what aspect of that I should do yet. However, at the end of it, I wanted to write a research paper to present my findings. And in order to get an idea of what was already out there, I conducted a literature review. One of the papers, I didn't find very much out there for health wearables and specifically the user experience of their companion mobile apps. So I did turn up a few things. First was a paper by Zambati et al., which was just a technology validation study on the sleep tracker capabilities of the Oura Ring. Not really where I needed to be. It's not anything to do with the user experience, and I don't really have the resources or expertise needed to carry out an instrumental validation study like this. Second was by Pyewick, Ellis, Andrews, and Joinson, who studied some concerns associated with how these devices store data. They investigated 2 populations of young adults and older patients who were using these devices to track their biometrics, and investigated how the data that are stored by these devices might be compromised because it's not, the data is not owned by the users, it's owned by the company technically. So with those in mind, I started to design my study. Now, neither of these focused on the user experience of actually using the device, so I decided that I would be the one to start investigating that. Then I went about getting my hands on the app and getting into how some of the tasks might be done in there. So I wrote some questions to conduct an interview before each participant was going to actually interact with the app to get an idea of their background with wearable health devices, some features that they might like to see, etc. And also some of the tasks that would be performed within the app. I chose these tasks to sort of comprise a representative sample of a variety of different things that the app is designed to be able to do. With those in mind, I started talking with Dr. Yu about how I might actually go about analyzing the data that I got from this. And she pointed me to look at something called the system usability scale, which is a tool for quantifying how usable a system is. Okay, so once I had all of that put together, I needed to get approval from the Institutional Review Board, which is an ethics committee that each university has. Because I was conducting research on human subjects and everything needed to be made sure that it wasn't going to be dangerous for them. This is mostly most notable for things like psychology studies and drug trials. So thankfully, because of the low risk involved with my project, it qualified for an exemption, meaning that there wasn't quite as much scrutiny placed on it, but still going through this process of making sure that all of my participants had informed consent of what they were doing, and that I wasn't going to put them in any sort of danger was still a necessary experience. So continuing on, the study that I actually conducted was in 3 parts, as I alluded to before: a questionnaire before they interacted with the app to gather context about each individual's experience and preferences with, health wearables. A contextual inquiry, which is the actual tasks that each participant performed within the app, followed by the questionnaire afterwards in the system usability scale. The pre-task questionnaire had 9 questions in total, which fell into 4 broad categories. The first was about their history with health wearable devices. It turns out that about half of them, 5 and 5, had used them versus had not used them. Second was a few questions about the kinds of features that they would look for, ones that they thought were essential and ones that they did not want to see in their device. The third group of questions was about a handful of specific features that the Oura Ring had, but might not be relevant to everyone. And finally, the last 2 questions pertained to the work done previously that I managed to find in my literature review. I asked them if they thought that scientific validation was important for a wearable health device, and if they thought that there were any safety of information concerns with these devices collecting their data. And I just wanted to talk about some of the highlights that I had from those responses. So a lot of the features that the participants who had used devices before, they were mostly looking for sort of ways to track their progress, to see what workouts they had done, to set goals and to manage those goals, and to do some, to check these concrete ideas about where they should be with their fitness. Whereas participants who had not used a health device before seemed to mostly want to track their data. So their steps that they had taken, how many calories they had burned, what their heart rate or breathing rate was. So I thought that was interesting. Second, almost all of them said that features that they did not want to have in their mobile application was any kind of alerts or advertisements or things that might distract from the experience, which are commonplace in the mobile app world, but would be very distracting for an application that is meant to be focused on just somebody's fitness and personal development. And the last thing that I thought was interesting was that a lot of the participants were not particularly concerned with their data safety. All of the ones that said that they weren't concerned gave as the reason that they weren't concerned was the fact that in the modern world, almost anything can sort of breach, have a data breach and leak all of their data anyway. So one more thing that might be doing that wasn't that much of a concern for them. For the contextual inquiry, there were 10 tasks that comprise, again, sort of a representative sample of the different types of things that you might do with this app. These had some tasks such as finding various information in the app, like the sleep stage tracker, an activity intensity tracker, the number of calories burned, history of biometrics like body temperature. There are also some tasks that had them to ask them to add a note or a workout for the day. And finally, a handful of tasks that were things that one might do once in a while with their device, but were still pretty necessary for the sort of maintenance of everything, such as looking at the configuration for the paired device to the app and making a backup of the data and looking at the help desk interface. During each task, participants were timed and asked to explain their thinking after each task, so I could collect some qualitative data about what each participant thought about each of the tasks. And then finally, the system usability scale. This is a standardized tool for measuring usability. What it is a 10-question questionnaire that asks participants to rate from 1 to 5 on a strongly disagree to a strongly agree scale about a variety of questions relating to the usability of the system. Things like, I found the system unnecessarily complex. I thought the system was easy to use. I felt confident using the system, so on. To analyze the data here, these results were taken from a 1 to 5 scale, subtract 1 from that to get a 0 to 4 scale. Then you add all of the responses together and multiply by 1.5 to get a result on a scale from 0 to 100. This is per the usability.gov guidelines for using the SUS. And 68 is the average score. So anything above that is good. It has an above average usability. Anything below that is not so good. The results that I found for this Oura Ring app was that all 10 participants rated it below average. And in looking through their responses, I had 3 ideas about why this might be. So 3 themes from looking back at these responses. First was the lack of labels. Quite a few things in the app aren't clearly labeled. Not only is the sleep stage tracker and activity intensity tracker, these are graphs that are just not labeled in their tabs, but also a number of the pages within the app itself aren't labeled. The configuration, the device configuration menu is just an icon with a pair of concentric circles and no indication that this is something that is either interactable or useful. There's also the button that allows you to add a note for the day or a workout is just a circle with a plus on it, and there's nothing indicating that this could be the solution to any of these tasks. Second was the plus button itself. It sort of sits on top of the home screen above the banner that has the rest of the tabs for all of the other information. And it's not labeled as something that would be helpful. However, when you tap it, it opens up a menu that says add a note, add a workout, or add a moment. And even within each of these menus, there is no search functionality. So you can't search for, oh, I went for a jog today. You have to scroll all the way down to running and then make the note there. There's also no filtering for the types of notes that you can have. Many of the notes have sort of predefined text, like I had a cold, I had a good day, I had a bad day, I had good sleep, something like that. There's no way to filter or search through those either. Finally, the hamburger menu, a common feature of many apps. The participants, many of them seem to default to looking through the hamburger menu anytime there wasn't a clear indication of what they should be doing. And this app is designed in such a way that the hamburger menu doesn't link to many other pages other than the things that are specifically in there. So there's the settings in there. There's a tab labeled trends and a few others, and the help desk interface. However, the primary features of the app aren't included in the hamburger menu. They're only included in their own tabs. So I think that the participants looking through the hamburger menu for when they weren't exactly sure were quickly frustrated and had to look elsewhere. Right, so that was what I came to the conclusion about this app. And I wanted to talk quickly about some takeaways that I have from conducting this study, is that engaging in research is hard. From planning and getting the approval, conducting and writing up everything, it was a little overwhelming. And I definitely have a greater appreciation for those who conduct research on a regular basis. Second, in writing my research paper, I was able to sharpen my writing skills. I haven't had a great opportunity to do serious academic writing since, I suppose, the upper levels of my undergrad degree with my chemistry labs. So being able to get back into writing for a more academic audience was definitely something that I think I will benefit from. And finally, having done all of this on my own, the value of having a group of people to share the workload, share the struggles, share the triumphs is definitely more clear in my mind, having to go through all of this on my own.